Fallout 76 Nuclear Winter is starting out in what can only be described as a nuclear winter. The hole dug by its bearer is deep and dark, and precious few survived. The dead horse that is beaten, then beaten some more, then run over by a bulldozer, then pulverized is the game of which Nuclear Winter is an extension of. One of Bethesda's historically bad launches, Fallout 76. No matter how hard Bethesda may try to be self-effacing about it,
or really wondering about Fallout 76.
Great to see everybody. We have had an incredibly exciting year at Bethesda Game Studios. Given some of that excitement, impressed you're still here.
the song remains the same. False advertising, from the beta that wasn't, the canvas bag, the Santa suit for $30, on sale for $20, the website selling piles of rubbish for exorbitant prices which settled on an appropriate nadir with Nuka Rum. The bugs on top of bugs on top of bugs, all comprised in a web of glitches hamstrung by exploits and engine issues caused by the train load, the copious exploits from stacking magazines in Pip-Boys to crashing the server by storing 8 million pounds in a mortar shell chest. Nukes that crashed servers, players waited that crashed servers, building up workshops to a pristine level and being prepared for a night of grinding, only for the servers to crash, all your resources squandered to go to the next squad, your death bag full of resources going into the floor or the wall or any damn thing, the limited stash size being a constant dull bleed that makes the endgame inventory management simulator. Content creators and commentators of all forms can return anew, again and again and again, to the golden goose of all that is wrong with modern AAA releases in Fallout 76. While I don't feel as burned as, say, many vanilla players, or as burned as Destiny 2, is that I ultimately see this as a big, hot, stinking whoopsie by a company that's made some classics.
Me, 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 me,
My
me,
work
me, me,
cannot
me.
wait.
Me, 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 me.
So I think we're all personally allowed a whoopsie or few in our lives. But that also isn't to say that when Todd Howard states 76 has made a complete turnaround, I'm going to believe him. I've played enough 76 as they've patched it to know it's not there yet. In fact, there's still a ways to go up, but perhaps giving them the benefit of the doubt, we can say for the time being they've quit digging. Well, I say that, but then they release a BR. The one thing that people were afraid they'd release, and that every game after PUBG and Fortnite has been unashamedly titled Johnny-come-latelys. It's a tough sell. The topic of this video is Nuclear Winter, and well, they call it pre-beta. Don't we call that an alpha? Is essential Bethesda, both vague and non-committal. The aptly named Nuclear Winter must pull itself from a glassed-in pit where the bombs fell after the shoddy launch of the base game. As the microbes that could repopulate the planet were whipped by the winds of change, one thing stood between them and rebirth, the very planet they were on. See, the fans holding on had survived the plagues of always online, the plight of microtransactions. What could they hold firm is in. At least it wasn't a BR. Well, here cometh it. And we ask, is this BR more than a radical height swing of desperation? In my opinion, Nuclear Winter has more negatives than it has positives. But these positives it does have are unique enough and strong enough that there might be a little warmth, some inexplicable, invigorating primeval soup still left in that dead zone. To get to those positives, we gotta dig through the shit first. Let's start with the foremost negative in my mind. Why are they doing a short-term beta? Excuse me. Pre-beta, whatever that means. Look, I'm against calling Fortnite a beta as anyone else. I've never seen a beta break $1 billion and be on its 9 zillionth patch either. But calling 76's 12-hour beta that came on the third Wednesday of a blood moon is just as obnoxious and faulty in its purpose. There are considerable negatives to consider for this pre-beta, but they all appear to be correctable. More will appear, likely also correctable. However, without a considerable amount of time for players to dig in and get full feedback, this is just another marketing ploy. Second on my mind is that if they don't keep the BR free to play, I don't think the lobbies are going to stay full. 76, whether by being of the Fallout license or by its own merits, has only by players' goodwill and patience managed to keep a steady player base together. That base tends to be there for the new stuff, check out the patch, but then it mellows out. Keeping BR lobbies full on a BR that is not up to the standard of PUBG, Fortnite, Apex Legends, holy god, there's been a lot of these come out in the past couple years, Blackout, Firestorm, need we say more, is a heavy lift. It's a heavy lift primarily because, like Fallout 76 itself, people were reasonably tepid and outright against multiplayer Fallout, so the hole gets deeper. If you didn't like multiplayer Fallout, then you certainly aren't going to like that it's now a Battle Royale Fallout. Fallout 76 and by extension Nuclear Winter have the horsemen of modern gaming's apocalypse. Always online, microtransactions, Battle Royale. If you're going to survive these semantic woes, it's best to bring the noise a la Apex Legends. It's a Battle Royale. It's always online, it's got loot boxes, but it happens to be an amazing shooter from Respawn, and so people are willing to give it a pass. Currently, 76 does not bring said noise. In rapid order, loading times are long. Like I had the time to switch the laundry around, use the bathroom, and have a short conversation on the loading screen going into a match, no exaggeration. I've had time to go and make a sandwich, come back downstairs, and eat it before I actually get into a match. And this is after the lobby. This is loading screen going into the match. The transport back to the main menu is also redundant. I want to go right back into the lobby waiting for another match. I'll keep returning to Apex because it's my favorite BR. That game makes the intuitive decision that if you have to eat an especially nasty frog, it doesn't pay to sit there and stare at it for very long. As in, if you die and you're really frustrated by that last death, don't make the player sit there and have to stare at it. Get the player right back into another game. There's little or no downtime in Apex Legends. You lose a match, okay, within 2 minutes you're back to flying down to try again. Nuclear Winter doesn't offer any of these, arguably now mandatory quality of life decisions Apex makes. There's no DPS counter, there's no DPS to XP conversion, no redeploy, no getting XP based upon how the team does. This last is especially nagging as it decentivizes teamwork. Putting the sole focus on personal performance is a good way to get players to do what they naturally always gravitate towards, thinking about me. Apex solves this by still giving a win to you if your team wins and doesn't grant you XP until you see it all the way through. Something poisonous in multiplayer is to have a brutal loading screen or a really long matchmaking time, then have a match end in moments after you've loaded in. A player can spend 8 to 10 minutes in Nuclear Winter waiting to get into a match just to get gibbed in the opening blow because the spawns are random. You pick a deployment area, then materialize into the will of RNG. I've been spawned in the middle of radioactive barrels, effectively pulling me back in another long lobby and waiting screen. This is further challenged by Fallout not being Doom or Halo. Enemy players too easily blend into the environment. The silhouette effect of Apex Legends, the subtle outline and gears, or the exaggerated features of Fortnite are all good examples of the GUI helping the player. Halo features a nice collection of these features. 76 does not. Player wearing all black or camo are at a significant advantage. And this combined by 76 not being the greatest FPS the world has ever seen, with frame rate struggles on the Xbox One X, hitches, a large inventory to manage, too many features active at once, it aggravates the situation. The too many features at once is that for inexplicable reasons, players bring their camp into Nuclear Winter so that players can do their best possible Fortnite impression, but inside Fallout. So it comes with the predictable jank, bugs, and occasional hilarity. The way this works is that if you don't get RNG'd in the first 5 minutes after your 15 minutes of waiting, then you can find wall kits and guard station kits, then rapidly deploy these like some run-of-the-mill blatant Chinese ripoff of any and all things BR. In short, it shouldn't be in here. I don't even appreciate the effort or the thought. Oddly, this coincides with there being a lack of features. One of the better elements of 76 is crafting, yet this is absent and seems like a missed opportunity seeing what Apex has done with its modding system. I don't mean to do a full-on springs and nuts and boards and steel, but to at least be able to put a scope on your rifle would be appreciated. 76 BR opts in for being overly complex when it comes to the number of options, ammo, health, power-ups, magazines, vault boys, building kits, etc., but overly simplistic in that it boils down to grab a gun, go shoot the mans. Of course, shooting the mans, finding the mans, knowing just where you are in the dense foliage, lighting effects, and screen tearing, that's another story. A last major point before ignoring the minutia for the sake of not adding style points to the kerosene currently burning on the napalm is that 2009 called and once it's down but not out, back. You're stuck in place, you sit there and you wail, and that's all you can do. Gears of War 2 featured at least movement and down but not out. Borderlands 2 featured movement and down but not out. Apex Legends would like to remind Nuclear Winter that being able to pull dead teammates back is the only way going forward. Especially in Nuclear Winter that caps people at 52 has a very quick time to kill, yet wants players to slow roll the looting. Here's my 2 cents. Put bomb shelters and vaults throughout the map. Players can be awoken from cryo, Fallout 4 style. Other dead players are there too, and they can come back. So we can all breathe a sigh of relief in avoiding the lore mess that would be trying to explain why in Fallout you're riding an umbrella to the ground. Okay, I lied. One nuance point. Why does the banner look like it came from a Roblox JPEG 14-year-old Timmy just uploaded? Or why does the game cement your score upon death? I've had knocks that get cleaned up, and the game won't give you XP on the bar because once you're dead, that's it. Or I mean, really, how did building make its way into this? In his choke? Okay. Moving on why this video is worth making despite all these negatives. Yes, despite any and all wrongdoing, Nuclear Winter still has that BR thing where a firefight gets one's heart racing, and no matter the square peg in a round hole that is putting Fallout 3's menu into a modern BR, and just the general jank of trying to create a BR inside Fallout, there is still a competent shooter here. A shooter that benefits greatly by using the Appalachia map from the real game. I'd argue perhaps the best BR map that currently is playable. Being a real-life resident of the region, and someone who has hunted morel mushrooms, squirrels, and deer in this area, the Indian summer, mid-fall feel, it hits the money. There's so much color and variety on the horizon that when juxtaposed against the dilapidation, petrified wood, billowing radioactive furnaces, behind you, a distinct Black Sabbath feeling comes on that reminds you of Ozzy bemoaning electric funeral pyre. This is a map that manages to hide and seek without the tedium of burrowing into a woodshed. The vegetation is dense enough that one can play out a most dangerous game fantasy in the comfort of their living room. Further, Nuclear Winter embraces melee as an option. It's not near as good as guns, but it does try to throw a fastball down the middle. It's risk versus reward. It hits hard, but it is, of course, a knife in a gunfight. Finally, there are two rocks of granite and obsidian they can make a contender out of in this game, and that is, in my opinion, the perk card system and the PvEVP component. Many games have tried to marry player versus player with player versus everything, and 76 does a commendable job with the effort. My first experience in the game had been very vanilla, and Radical Heights was on my mind, until I hit a couple grenade launcher kills, got into the final ring, and with the final two teams converging on myself as the lone solo, a Scorch Beast arrived and saved the day. It rearranged everyone's strategy. Getting a Scorch Beast to pursue the most equipped or embedded squad was something the reboot of Turok at its most desired wanted to do, and which 76 actually pulls off. Currently, there just isn't enough of it. I'm not saying as super mutants and bandits, but the Mirelurks, ghouls, hounds, etc. are the foremost thing on my mind that is keeping this Fallout BR from not just becoming BR clone number 20031. Adding to this is the perk card system. Player takes a tune from what's now called adventure mode and takes their special points into the game. Everything is normalized and stats no longer have a bearing in the game, but they do have a bearing on your ability to use your 7 perk cards. If a tune doesn't have 9 points of luck, you're not running bloody mess in the BR. No matter what, everyone runs 7 cards, and they give you really, really good starter cards that you have to really debate on whether you should even ever take them off. These perk cards make enough of a difference, though, to give it an action RPG light feel. It's a lot more than COD, but it's considerably less than the base game, and for good reason. Still, these cards felt balanced by leaving it to strictly 7, and everyone has the same 7, and those starting 7 are very strong. And they help to retain the feeling of creating a build with the continued addition of drugs, mutations, PvE elements, so you can still run the card that makes your mutation stronger and then go radiate yourself and just try to run that in a match, which adds a lot of creativity and variance to the matches. Personally, I've been going down pure stealth. I found that the crossbow is extremely good, and trying to get the chameleon mutation early can make you very dangerous. Lastly, there are nukes. A briefcase, the famous nuclear football the president has around him at all times, is hidden on the map. If you find this football and then you fill it with 5 launch codes, which are uncommon but they're around, then it's easy as going into your miscellaneous in your menu, clicking the nuclear briefcase, selecting a launch point on the map. My experience getting it is I unwittingly kamikazed myself. However, the potential is there for an aggressive, high-skill player to pull off insane kill counts if they can get a hold of the nuke early and launch it expertly. This high-stakes game with massive reward is unique to Nuclear Winter. My initial impression of Nuclear Winter was that we had a Radical Heights on our hand, a desperate ploy to maybe get some of the Fortnite love, and they just tried to pile the Clampage jalopy on their way to California Way, hoping that anything would stick. But I've been impressed that the nuke actually adds tension. They thought about it. They didn't just toss it into the jalopy on the way to California. No, it is a tangible third element to the game, creating tension and nuance. And so you combine combine all these things together into a uniquely satisfying stew. The monsters, the other players, then, oh yeah, we might get radiated to the Stone Age. These three strengths unique to 76's BR are contained within games that rarely hit 20 minutes, usually around 15 for me, which has impressed me the most. If the games were a slog, all would be lost, but the games being quick, the burn zone hitting hard, causing dread-inducing panic as cars and transformers explode while the ground becomes ash beneath you, to me indicates Nuclear Winter is totally its own thing. Running on the rules of BR, sure, but with its own unique balance to mean that it stands out. The length of the match feels appropriate, action comes at a steady clip, the odd and end PvE element comes into play. Yes, they can and I believe should do so much more here because it is one of the standouts. You play with maybe the most complex menu in all of the many BRs, and by then someone's either shooting you about to nuke you, this is reversed, or the fire is radiating you to a cinder. Yes, in those immortal words of Todd Howard, it just works. And honestly, for the most part, it does. Perhaps the one thing that I didn't expect to say here, nor ever in my life, is that Fallout BR works. Had they stuck with the vanilla plopping of people on a map, last man standing wins, I'd say that it feels like desecrating a grave to blast a Tomahawk cruise missile into the ruins of the Titanic. But Nuclear Winter's addition of PvVP elements, the perk card system, the nuclear briefcase, all contained within a match as short as Apex Legends rounds, but with the methodical, human-hunting human element of PUBG, it feels a little like oil and grease on the engine to keep her running over troubled water. In fact, they put time into it, and while I find the loading screens and wait time the biggest negative currently holding it, aiding in this negative is that the lobby contains a full Fallout story. The lobby is Vault 51, where you discover that the BR game you play is that Vault's experiment. As you rank up, you're able to discover new rooms and new secrets, but it's never as blasé as you go through to the next room. You have to do a lot of poking around, and it's all related to the past Fallout games and the mythology of Fallout, and it ties the entire experience together in a unique way. Not many BRs have story or lore, and it wouldn't have been Fallout without some story, and they have arguably built the most complete and logical BR game lore ever. If someone argues Fortnite BR has better lore, tossing in a bunch of random elements connected by fan theories and welded together with vagueness, that's not a story, it's just happenings. So a final word. Nuclear Winter, given a chance, is a contender. It'll never be as big, in my opinion, as Apex or Fortnite, and maybe it is a cash grab, but it's not a blind one. Bethesda took time enough and were smart enough to make their BR chili at least taste a little different, not necessarily better than the other chilies at the county fair. Personally, I found it a ton of fun, and no matter the tribulations of 76, this game has never lacked for, and I would never fault it, for lack of ambition and willingness to take risks. The only bloated, months-old, dead elephant in the room that can ruin even the most picturesque sunset is that a match can end in 30 seconds but require a 10-minute load screen. The down players have no movement and cannot be rezzed once totally dead. It's both a mental and fundamental game design quality of life fix for any BR to make the same elegant design choices Apex made. They work. You can do 99% of the damage to an enemy, fail to get the knock, therefore any kill, where again, Apex fixes this by tracking damage, and damage is given the largest weight and figuring your contribution, equating to XP. Nuclear Winter, lacking at least the stat, already feels aged in this lightning-fast industry. They've taken Morrowind's engine and somehow, by the skin of their teeth, got multiplayer in, albeit with frustrating caveats. Now they're working a competitive PvP experience into the same workings that produced Dragauthor and Vivek. The question then stands, no matter how much they manage to pass the low expectation threshold, can the work be put in under the hood to make this worth playing over any other BR? Thank you for watching. I'll see you at twitch.tv/StuckOnPandora.